I'm a Mozilla fellow. I'm working in a newsroom in Berlin. It's called Zeit Online, and I'm actually up here with my colleagues, Brian and Sonia, and we're all open news fellows, which is great. I create tools for journalism. I try and reduce the complexity of dealing with data so that journalists have an easier time creating their stories. So we're part of a program called Open News. Open News is a collaboration between the Knight and Mozilla foundations. Knight is a foundation that is supporting journalism, and Mozilla is a foundation supporting technology and the open web. And this program is here to support communities of developers and journalists so they can come together, create things, learn things, work together. And how do they do that? They do it by creating communities and connecting with existing communities like hacks and hackers, and like you guys, Chicas Poderosas. We are Open News Fellows. There are 8 of us in the world right now, and we're based in different newsrooms around the world. We collaborate with newsrooms and communities to aid and abet journalism. There are many things that you can do at the intersection between technology and journalism: teaching, learning, making tools, scraping data, analysing. So the real point here is that data journalism doesn't have to be complex to provoke and engage and provide insight. It doesn't have to be complex for you to engage with or to create. It's true that datasets now are more complex, but as we saw from Michael's demonstration yesterday, it's not out of your reach. And there's a huge international community here to help you. You can do it. You just need to start with something that interests you. It's called Valkatina, and it's demonstrating election data. It shows you that visualization can be fun and informative. They do this data analysis, and then they use food, of all things, fabulous things, to tell a story. So this shows the voting turnout by province, showing that there's a huge difference in voting turnout across the different places in Germany, and each province here has a different sausage associated with it. This is actually the local food that they eat. You can see here that in Bavaria they eat this Weisswurst, this white sausage. So all the fellows here around the world are trying to engage with the community, like you guys, encourage you to code and collaborate and create and make things. So you can do it. There's a community here to help you. You can find me on Twitter. My name's Annabelle Church.
I want to re-emphasize on the theme of our session. When you see this kind of picture on Facebook, what would you do? You like it, right?
Yes.
Of course. And you share it with your family and your friends. So here we see the number. So over 600 shares. On the bottom you see, quite great, 125 comments. So again, you can see the pattern. Almost 600 people share the story, whereas the number of comments is only 66. So this is a show 2 weeks ago, and it's quite proactive, and to some people it's really, really shocking. So here's people's reaction to this post. You see over 1,000 shares as opposed to over 8,000 comments. So this guy kept 3 women for about 10 years, and then someday he just ended his life in prison. Here we see shared by over 1,000 people, commented by over 2,000 people. Again, that's the same thing here. Shared by 40 people, and then commented by 90 people. So here we see the pattern. This is not a very happy story. People prefer to comment on it rather than share it. You realize actually people have different emotions. People would categorize them basically in 8 types: interest, happiness, disgust, surprise, sadness, anger, fear, and contempt. And actually scientists find especially happiness and disgust will trigger people's communication. You like to talk about it. And also, those psychologists realize the more emotional a story is, the more likely people will share it. This is a box plot about readability across newsrooms. So the number from 0 to 30, probably, very often is cut at 12, is about how many years you need in order to understand this piece of text. So for BuzzFeed, you need 5 years of education. And then for the New Yorker and the Economist, you need over 12 years of education. So that's the point. But it doesn't mean that you have to always keep your text simple. Use very short words and short sentences. That's not the case. Because actually, different level of complexity will trigger people to do different things. For instance, what I realize is if the text is really simple and the pictures are really cute or interesting, people tend to share it. But if the message is complicated, and it can actually encourage people to join this conversation. So I also look into tags you're using. You say breaking news or your uppercase, watch this. So I analyzed across 3 different categories about how many people will see this, how many people will click it or talk about it by sharing, liking, or commenting on it. So actually it has an effect on people's reaction. But just don't overdo it. And this is another chart showing the efforts as opposed to outcome. So this axis, x-axis, shows how many stories Boston Globe published during 2 weeks. And then on this vertical axis, you see how many reactions and readership the newsroom got during those 2 weeks. So you hear, actually, the steeper it is, that means that story or that type of story is more rewarding. Whereas if it's kind of flat over here, that's pretty sad. Our stories are not very welcome online, especially on Facebook. This is one of the newsrooms in China that came up with a very creative idea to, to show you that this story has been deleted for some reason. But they don't want to waste this space, so they put a picture of a missing kid here. So actually, they have a database of this of missing kids. The study started with my personal interest because I was curious how many stories are actually deleted every day in China. So this is the very simple workflow of my program. First, I crawl a lot of stories from different news websites. Then I keep checking them, see if they're available. Meanwhile, I try to archive all the news stories just in case some of them are deleted and I may not have a chance to see it again. So I found some repeated topics from news deletion, for instance, that. And also land, because China has been growing so fast, and also because of the kind of too fast economic growth. Pollution is also a problem. But, that's journalism, that's your end product. And then definitely coding is your tool. And also, social science may help you how to get your message across. So what are you passionate about? As you learned from yesterday, follow your passion rather than money. And then what are you eager to learn? Who's your audience? You care about your family or your friends, your neighbor, or the folks in this country. Now how to do it? Join a community or create a community. And also try to learn some online tools such as Google Scholar, and also try to take advantage of the library in your school. So here's my answer to those questions. Happy family are all alike. Every unhappy family isn't happy in its own way, right? So just now I talked about the problem in China, but think about your own country. You're the best one to address and also tackle the problem. What's the problem? What you can do, right, to change this environment? Also, let's talk about girls. Happy women are all like every unhappy woman is unhappy in her own way. So could you do something at your school, in your newsroom, to change something? And the last point is, it's absolutely fun. Thank you very much.
So the people who both raised their hands for having never coded before and having never been to a hackathon were me almost 2 years ago today. So the first time I ever went to a hackathon, I had never written a line of code before. When I walked in, the first person I met was this guy, whose name is Thomas Levine. We ended up working on this set of data in New York City that's very important. For the last 15 years, they've had a policy that policemen can arbitrarily stop anyone on the street without probable cause. So anyways, we were working on this data set, and I didn't know what I was doing, but Thomas sort of took me to the side, and he sort of helped me make my first map. and it was horrible. It looked like shit. So the second hackathon I went to was about 6 months after that, and I sort of started to learn some more things and still wasn't very comfortable. And there I met this guy, Michael Keller, who is now one of my very close friends. And he was a journalist who was just trying to learn to code at the same time. And at the hackathon, once again, this sort of question of stop and frisk came up, and what can we do with this data? And at the time, the AP had just released some secret documents that were put together by the NYPD and the CIA. And what they basically outlined was that the NYPD for many years had now been surveilling mosques in New York City under the presumption that all mosques are terrorist organizations. And so this was quite a big story, and we thought, well, maybe we can combine these two data sets. So one thing in these documents were these lists of mosques that they were checking out and their addresses. So we thought, what if we look at all the stops that happen right around these mosques? Maybe if we look before and after this report was released, we might find something. So we made these two really ugly maps. But so basically, if you just look up before the report and after the report, you can kind of see that there might be more, but this was really not definitive. The point here is that we made something in these 2 days, and we got a prototype together. We started this organization, or really just a group of people called CSV Sound System. It's a pun on the band LCD Sound System. And so we kept on working this for 3 months. We had no idea what we were doing. We started asking lots of people. And sort of the main problem was that we had no way to compare stops around mosques to non-mosques. And how do we actually know that there was an uptick? So we came up with this methodology. I won't really go through it, but basically we started comparing mosques to churches surrounding the mosques and counting how many stops were around the churches versus the mosques. Even if you can't put anything together in a hackathon, you can still get an idea, and then you have something to work on and something to strive for. So the third hackathon was earlier this year, and it was put on by the Sunlight Foundation. And now I showed up as a team. I had a group of people, a community that I built of hackers and journalists and designers, and we were, set to make something cool. And so one of our journalist friends had discovered this data set put out by the FMS. It's the daily expenditures of the US government broken down by every program. And it turns out that this is the only format that this data is released in. You can't really do anything with this. This is not something that you could build an app with. So we spent the weekend and we turned the data into this, which is much uglier but very pretty to me. And on top of that, we built this app called Treasury.io, and it allows journalists to make cool things with this data. They can query it, they can download it, and we also built a Twitter bot. So it's kind of going off the page right here, but basically what it does is every day it tweets out information about what the government has spent the US's money on. So this probably would say on September 10th, the US government spent like $61 million on Social Security. But this is really boring, right? Like budgetary data is super boring. Not many people want to engage with it. So another thing we did is we made a music video out of the data. All right, so this all of the music you're hearing right now is generated by data, and it's also corresponding to like all the images you're seeing. So just to put it in context, we'll go down here, and right here you're looking at the U.S. financial crisis sonified. And I think that's what's great about hackathons is that, yes, you could come up with a new app that might, change the world, but you could also just do that and have a really good time for a day and have something cool to show your friends. The best way to start is to be passionate and curious and try something and just do it and keep trying. And no matter how good you are or your level of skill, The most important thing is that you have a good idea and you execute it. And if you need help, you can create a community. You can, join many existing communities. And every step you take, you learn new things. So what about the fourth hackathon? And that's going to happen today.